Good day, Internet. This is DTNS Live for Thursday, April 10th, 2025. From Studio Animal House, I'm Sarah Lane.
From Columbus, Ohio, I'm Robb Dunewood.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
Daily Tech News Show Live is made possible by its listeners thanks to all of you, including Philip Less, Howard Yermis, John Atwood, and our new patron, Andrew.
Hey, Andrew. Oh, it's good to have a new patron. Welcome, everyone, to DTNS Live. This is the show where we discuss the tech news to help us all understand it a little bit better as we go through it together. Robb Dunewood, how the heck are you?
I'm doing okay. The market looks great
yesterday.
It's down today, but I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. It's yard work time, so it's time to go out there and start getting the last little bit of leaves, dirt on the ground up, and edging and all that kind of stuff. So as long as the rain holds off, I want to be doing those kind of things over the next couple of days.
What about you, Roger? How are you?
I'm all right. It's warm.
Okay, we're all just limping along here.
Yeah, it's it's just that time of the year when a lot of things just sort of fall down on your plate that you have to do before the end of the month.
Yeah, I know in my household, it's tax season. I know a lot of Americans also feel the pain of that. And yes, I spent some time. Roger, you and I have the same tax attorney. And we talked through lots of things. Some things I was not happy to hear about. Other things I was sort of happy to hear about. So, yep, money.
Yes.
How does it work?
And where do I get lots of it?
Right.
Well, as soon as you find out, let me be the first or second person that you text.
Yeah, exactly.
Say, hey, Rob,
I would also like to know.
Like they're backing up a dump truck of gold bullion, go pick you up some. If you get that kind of information, please let me know.
I mean, you'll know when my house is just painted in gold leaf.
Yeah, that's how we'll know. Yeah, it looks like Roger's doing well.
Yeah, it's very bright over on this side of the block.
All right. Well, we are here to talk about tech news, so let's get right into it, starting with the quick hits.
Stocks took a dive Thursday, erasing about half of Wednesday's rally after the U.S. administration confirmed that total tariffs on Chinese goods would hit about 145%, despite a temporary 90-day reprieve on some duties. The S&P 500 dropped 5.4%, the NASDAQ fell 6.2%, and the Dow slid 4.7%, with major tech stocks like Apple and Tesla leading the declines.
The OnePlus Watch 3 has launched in the U.S. at $499.99. You might say, wait, wasn't it supposed to be $329.99? Yes, it's now $170 more than that previously announced price. OnePlus hasn't explained the increase. It is likely due to U.S. tariffs on Chinese-made goods, where the Watch 3 is manufactured.
Robotaxi haters might like this one. A Waymo without passengers caused a traffic jam this week after getting stuck in the drive-through lane of a Chick-fil-A in Santa Monica, California. Waymo confirmed to TechCrunch that the vehicle had just dropped off a rider in the parking lot, but then couldn't finish a multi-point turn in a narrow space with surrounding cars. No one was hurt unless you count hungry people trying to place their orders.
I know where this Chick-fil-A is. Yes, I do. I was not here for this incident, but I can only imagine that a hungry person being like, beep, 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 beep. Wait a second. It's a Waymo. No one's in that car.
Sarah, I wonder if you will start to see fast food restaurants start to say no driverless cars coming into the parking lot.
No, they'll make a separate one. So they come in and you drop the orders in and it drives off.
Well, but like that, what happened to the Waymo, as I understand the story, in the parking lot had nothing to do with there being like a separate Waymo area. It just couldn't, it couldn't turn around.
It just got trapped. It didn't know what to do.
It just got trapped and was like, well, maybe this is the way out. Oh, Waymo. Well. Paul Atkins has been confirmed by the U.S. Senate as the new chair of the Securities and Exchange Commission, succeeding Gary Gensler. Atkins is known to have a crypto-friendly stance and is expected to roll back former U.S. crypto informants actions. The commission is still yet incomplete, with 2 Democratic seats still unfilled. So the story is ongoing, but that's the latest.
Sarah Wynn-Williams, former head of global public policy at Facebook, testified before the U.S. Senate on Wednesday, accusing Meta of working with China to compromise U.S. national security, claiming that Facebook created custom censorship tools that gave a Chinese chief editor broad powers over content and the ability to disable services in certain regions or on certain dates. Meta spokesperson Ryan Daniels said the testimony was false and noted that Facebook does not operate in China.
Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang has reportedly reached an agreement with the U.S. administration to avoid export restrictions on the company's H20 AI chips. The H20 chips are modified to operate below the capabilities of Nvidia's more advanced models and are among the few AI chips still authorized for export from China. To China, rather. Previous reports indicated that Chinese-based AI company DeepSeek used H20 chips to develop its own R1 open AI model. All right, we're talking more tariffs, but only slightly. Stay with us here. Reuters sources say that to avoid new U.S. tariffs on Chinese imports, Apple secretly airlifted around 1.5 million iPhones, or about 600 tons of iPhones, from India to the U.S. in recent weeks. We have talked about this. This is Reuters sources saying, we have more solid numbers of what actually got transported. The company reportedly ramped up production at its Foxconn plant in Chennai, in India, adding extra shifts, and worked with Indian authorities to speed up customs clearance. So instead of, it being 30 hours, it was more like 15 hours type thing. With tariffs on Chinese-made iPhones somewhere between 125 and 145% as of this recording, because it's a rapidly changing situation here, Apple is obviously accelerating its shift to India as a key manufacturing base. I wanted to ask you, Rob and Roger, the idea of cramming, 600 tons of iPhones into a bunch of planes and getting them back to the U.S. to avoid tariffs sounds like an espionage movie kind of thing. And I believe that it happened, and good on them, I guess. But considering that in 2024. We had, about 151 million iPhones sold in the U.S. specifically? 1.5 million iPhones is not going to move the needle all that much.
Here's what I think will happen. I think this is two things. It is a just-in-case tax that Apple was absolutely willing to pay. Let's get as many of these phones here before we get hit with this tariff as we possibly can, because here's the thing, Sarah. 1.5 million is more than zero. So these phones will cost more if they don't get that number here. So I think what's happening is that Apple is trying to do this to do one of two things. As I said, to number one, to not have to pay the tariff, and number two, buy themselves some time so that they can shift things into India where the tariff is less. Right now, I believe it is sitting at 10% today at the time of this recording. So if they can just buy themselves some time, because you can't just make a factory just automatically produce more things. You've got to, there's logistics and things that have to go on, supply chains. There's all kind of stuff that has to happen in order for them to produce more things in one place compared to producing them in another place. And I think that this 1.5 million devices is just giving them enough time to get that, basically to get that ball rolling.
Yeah, I think to me it implies two things. One, Apple is looking to it needs breathing space to figure out what its next moves are. Two, they're in a bit of a quandary because they still the bulk of the phones that they sell come from China, and so they are trying to figure out what do we do and how do we do it in a way that they're going to have to, they can either eat the costs, which is highly unlikely, for the long term, but they could eat the cost short term, and the 1.5 million phones would maybe go some way to alleviating that, maybe just give them a month or maybe a couple of weeks of space. But longer term, it's not, I think it's more than just figuring out supply chains. It's also figuring out who own Capitol Hill, and who can they talk to kind of maybe ease some of these issues in the same way that Jensen Huang managed to do that for their chips, export chips. So there obviously is a way to influence certain individuals to allow maybe not as rigorous tariffs to be placed on their products, or limitations. And maybe that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to figure out both ends. They're trying to figure out the supply chain. Who do we talk to? Supply chain, who are doing both at the same time. And what Rob was saying is basically true, is that it gives them some time, not a lot of time, but it gives them some time to maneuver and to figure out things.
Yeah, where we are right now, the timing is a month. If this buys in the month, you literally could have 3, 4, 5 different positions that the United States is on, because these things are literally changing, not from month to month or quarter to quarter. They're changing from day to day. So I really just believe that they're just trying to buy time, and let's just do what we can do now, so that we can have a better understanding of what the landscape looks like, so we know what we need to do once things are actually in place and affecting them.
But that's the thing, like, currently that's all up in the air, right? So you need to do both. You need to figure out, okay, there's changing things again. Who do I talk to? Right? Like you need to have both things. When a supermarket runs low on groceries, they not only talk to the suppliers, but they also have to figure out, right, okay, maybe we can shift some of this stuff. We don't have iceberg lettuce, but we have lots of romaine. Let's shift people over to romaine. You have to, there's a lot of things involved. And honestly, this is one of the few times I think Apple kind of feels a little anxious about the whole situation. And I mean, like, anxious in a anxiety, panic attack way.
This feels very anxious.
Yeah.
Not that Apple's the only company.
No, they're definitely not the only company. But they are the highest, one of the highest profile tech companies.
Yeah.
And that's,
I mean, listen, it's, Apple has, more money than God. You can imagine the company just being like, write it out. We don't care. No, that's not how companies work. Yeah. That's just not how they work. So this feels like a stopgap measure that sure, it's going to buy Apple a little bit of time. And if we're in the same situation next month, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, Apple is not going to be like illegally smuggling iPhones into the country. But mark my words. Maybe I'm
they'll
wrong
have all
here,
their employees come in with new 2 phones in their pockets as they walk.
Right, exactly. But yeah, this does feel like it feels like it's interesting to me that it's like, wow, this is amazing, like 1.5 million iPhones, but really that doesn't get you much runway at all.
Well, here's the thing. At least at the beginning of the day, Apple was once again the biggest company in the world as far as their market cap. I don't know if they're still there, because they've kind of taken it as many other tech companies have today, but they're controlling the controllables. They're in a situation where there's a bunch of uncertainty. So you kind of fall back on, well, what do we know? We know we've got 1.5 million devices sitting here. Let's get them on a plane and fly them to where it will cost us less to sell them than leaving them sit here where it will literally cost us anywhere from 125 to 145% more to sell them. So I think that they are controlling the controllables with what they know right now, and doing the things that Roger said. They're going to start talking to their Congress people. They're going to start lobbying hard. I mean, it's not like they ever stop doing that, but they are doing it in overdrive right now.
Indeed. All right. So, Rob, chatbots out here writing entire news articles. You and I write a lot of articles, so we know, that feels a little chatbot-esque. Do folks like you and I need to be worried?
So, Sarah, there is some new research from Charles Darwin University investigating the stylistic differences between news articles written by human journalists and those generated by AI. Researchers compared 150 human written articles from sources like the New York Times and the Sydney Morning Herald with 150 AI-generated articles created by prompting Google's Gemini. And you guys, you may have never guessed this. I don't want to alarm you, but AI-generated content kind of sucks. It lacks the creative flair, let's say, and the stylistic delivery of human writing. So some things that humans do that the AI just has not picked up yet. Human journalists tend to use a greater variety of sentence and paragraph lengths. We tend to vary things up a lot. Some other things that we do, we also use more verbs. We try to be much more descriptive, and because we tend to tell stories more so than just give you the information. So those things are very, very evident. And if you just go and tell, in this case, Gemini, if you tell ChatGPT, if you just tell it, just create me a 10 paragraph article, and then you look at someone who wrote the same, wrote about the same thing, you can almost instantaneously tell that one was generated by AI and that the other was not.
I had an old coworker on Facebook. She's a teacher right now. But she said, like, one of the telltale signs she can tell that her students are using generative AI to write their papers is the excessive use of gerunds in the
excessive
piece, right?
use of what?
Gerunds. So basically, verbs that function as nouns. So instead of swim, do you enjoy swimming, or do you enjoy cycling, or do you enjoy running? Right? Instead of say run, it's a verb that functions as a noun. But it's very prevalent in generative AI writing, and that's like one of the telltale signs she always points out when she's grading papers. I don't think it should surprise anyone, especially if you understand how LLMs work, that a lot of the stuff seems, generic because it's doing this based on probabilities and not exactly, functioning on a design where there's a creative element where, okay, now I'm going to make a bold choice and, break into a haiku, mid description of this product or something.
I mean, we've talked about this in the past where I think, Rob, you do this as well. Sometimes I'll be like, here's my article. I want to run it through a couple different LLMs and just sort of see what it spits back out. Does it sound like me? Does it not sound like me? And maybe does it write it more succinctly than I would? And, there are weird LLM things where they will say something like, instead of being like, and blah, 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 they'll say, additionally, comma, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I just would never say that. Mm-hmm. It feels like on paper, it's not totally a problem. But for us, when we write a lot of copy in order to eventually talk it out loud, you write differently. And I think we might be in a kind of special category, but there are so many times where I'm just like, I never would have said it that way. There's just no way I would have said it that way. And, it doesn't mean that it's not helpful. It can be helpful for, research processes, but otherwise I am like, nah, I'm just going to write this myself.
So one of the things that the research team that they pointed out in this is that AI is getting better. It is absolutely getting better at it, but they still believe that it's a ways off before it can replace people. And they think that you could just create a browser plugin, something similar to Turnitin, that would easily flag AI generated content as AI generated content. And anyone who really is interested in seeing what the difference would be, you can use Notebook LM. If you were to go and actually look at a real article that was written by a human and then feed that article into Notebook LM and then tell it to generate the podcast off of it and listen to what those two people say, it is passable. You will understand what is being said, but it is so clear that these are not two people who are talking to each other. And in most cases, it's actually pretty cringe. And that's where we are. It's like, they're not close. They are getting better, but they're not close to approximating how humans talk. Like, I'm just thinking of me. I will start off a story and say something like, well, what happened? What had happened was you will never see an LLM do that. That is all kind of grammatically incorrect. And they are trying to get it right, not trying to sound like humans. I think they're trying to sound like humans, but they're trying to sound like humans by humans being correct in the way that they actually express things that they say. So I'm with the researchers on this. It is getting better, but I don't think that we need to worry yet. I am not concerned right now. Maybe in June, maybe in July, these things keep getting better, but I'm not concerned about being replaced by something that clearly sounds like a robot as compared to sounding like me.
And it depends on what the use case is. I know lots of websites use AI generated content, and it shows because it's a very lengthy and often tedious read to explain why certain plants are better for your yard than others. I think this is just one of those things that over time people will begin to. And this is the thing. Like we often take the worst example of something as sort of how it functions normally, right? So if there's enough of these bad writing chatbots around, people are just going to say, "Oh, does a chatbot write this for you, or are you just really bad at writing?" I don't know that there might be some sort of cachet to having a person write it in the future, which be kind of cool to demand more money so it doesn't sound generic. But for a lot of people, for a lot of places, that could just be enough, right? If you just need to fill a web page and get like maybe 5 clicks a day or 15 clicks a day, it's done its job, and you didn't have to pay someone to do it.
Well,
you got to be careful.
Yeah,
you got to be careful when it does its job, because one of the things that AI still has a problem with is hallucinations. It gets it wrong a lot. It's not like it gets it wrong 1 or 2% of the time. In some cases, it gets it wrong over half the time. So we have to be careful with hallucinations. We also have to be careful with AI bias. Not to say that journalists aren't biased, because they absolutely can be as well, but AI can be biased, and it writes things in ways that you wouldn't necessarily know that it was. It's just stating things as fact that may have been hallucinated or simply may not be fact. So there's a lot of reasons that you would want to side eye anything that you know is written by AI, simply because you don't know that you can trust it. You need to definitely go check your sources, check all your sources of where it said it got the information from, if the AI is capable of telling you that.
And I think that's a big part of, the idea of using AI is, as journalists, as we all are, the idea of using AI doesn't, it doesn't hinder your workflow. In fact, it's supposed to help, but you also have to, double, triple, quadruple check everything. And if you don't, then it's like, now you're going to publish something that is a hallucination, and people will say, oh man, you used AI and you're phoning it in, kind of thing. If you use it as and this is kind of me talking about how I use AI stuff when I'm going through stories. If I use it as sort of like, give me like the base brick model of like, okay, here's the paragraph, and then I go through it and I'm like, here's what what I would have said, here's where an information might be not quite right, not necessarily wrong, but just like, let's say it a different way. That actually is, it feels like I'm collaborating with a team member that doesn't exist. I could do it with Rob, I could do it with Roger, I could do it with Tom, but if I can't, then this is kind of the collab thing that I'm looking for, and that works really well. But if I were just to be like, I don't know, just tell me what the story is, oh boy, you're gonna get things wrong all the time and often.
I use AI a lot. I find myself using it probably more and more every day, but it is just a tool. I can't spell to save my life. It does spell check for me. I make a lot of grammatical mistakes. It corrects them for me. Now, one thing that I am very careful to do is I don't allow something like Grammarly to correct it'll give you a better way to say something as compared to saying your way of saying it was incorrect. because that is where it starts to sound like you used an AI to generate it. If you say it the way that the AI says it, I'm not saying it the way that I say it. So I just want to make sure that my spelling is on par and that my my grammar is okay. It's passable as compared to just completely rewriting every single sentence that I say. But I do use it a lot. It comes in very, very, very handy.
Yeah,
so it's like, so I am not anti-AI, but guys, you could tell. I've been playing a lot with Notebook LM lately. You can definitely tell when it is not AI or when it is AI. So, folks, what do you want to hear us talk about on the show? One way to let us know is on our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at www.reddit.com/r/Daily Tech News Show.
Certain experiences can often continue to manifest themselves well after the event. Think a song that becomes an earworm. You can't get it out of your head. Apparently, this is also true for video games. Roger, I know you've been looking into this, so let's talk about it.
Yeah, so the BBC has a great write-up on a fascinating read on GTP, or game transfer phenomenon. It's a condition in which the physical world and the video game world sort of bleed together. Now, individuals who have this condition, it can kind of be unsettling because there might be a sort of a semi psychosis where you're not really sure where you're imagining things. The term was coined, by Angelica Ortiz Gotare, a psychologist at the University of Bergen in Norway. And as she was studying the behavior, she gave a few examples of individuals who would explain what they were experiencing in their day-to-day life. One participant said that on one occasion they literally saw just like the health bar over their companions' heads that they were with, much like in World of Warcraft, where you have like a health bar meter that tells you how
they literally, but they saw it in their own mind.
They saw it in their mind. It wasn't metaphorical, but they visualized it and they saw it. Another individual felt that they were describing initially is that they were just sitting down doing something, but their hands were doing the motions of holding a controller, even though they had nothing in their hand. They were just doing the thumbs and the buttons, and it was just sort of, it wasn't even conscious. It was just something that their body was doing. And one of the things that they noticed was that a lot of these symptoms usually come around after about 4 hours of gameplay, where someone who's sitting down for like a game session can come away and still in their minds psychologically be playing or visualizing elements of those games. And I was wondering if any of you have ever experienced something similar. Personally, there was a time where I was super into first-person shooters, and when I was walking down the office halls or just any hall in a building, I would actually move in the same way that I would move in the game. I would walk on the opposite side so I could go around the corner and look ahead to see if there was anything behind it. And I didn't consciously I didn't say I'm going to walk this way.
It just felt good.
Yeah, I felt this is what I was supposed to do. It felt very routine. And it wasn't until I stopped playing 6 plus 7, 7 hour online sessions of Serious Sam, that it sort of worked its way out. But, there are other examples I can imagine that other people have experienced.
I have an example. I had no idea what this was, but it is something that I distinctly remember because we noticed that we were doing it and talked about it. But this is way back in the day. This is like the late 90s. And a game, I think, was Unreal Tournament. I played a ton of that game, and I played with coworkers. We would literally stay after work and play this game all the time. And we worked in a giant data center. I actually was a data center manager. And so anyone who's familiar with data centers, you basically just have rows of servers with breaks. We would notice that when we were working, we would walk in formation like we were playing the game. and we would cover the angles. And it was like a buddy of mine said, dude, are we actually playing the game in real life? I distinctly remember that because it was something that we still talk about that to this day. So after seeing this article, I'm going to actually have to send it to my group of guys because these are dudes that I've played games with literally for 25, 30 years. And this is something that we've done. I remember, like I said, late 90s, walking in formation in the server room.
Have you ever tried hoarding stuff? Like, one of the things in certain RPG games is when a non-player character you defeat or whether drop stuff, you just automatically pick everything up. And there was a time where I almost I caught myself doing it, but it's like, oh wait a minute, there's all this stuff, I better grab it. Like I just wait a minute, what am I doing? It's just like
better me than someone else.
Yeah, like this bag full of rubber bands and this half-empty can of Coke. It's gonna have some value, but it's a very non. It's almost autonomic, right? Like breathing. It's just like that's what you do. There's stuff I better collect it, stick in my pockets. You never know what's gonna come help. Besides, I could sell it to the merchant and get a couple of credits.
I've never been into RPGs, but I know, Roger, one of your examples that we were talking about in the pre-show was Tetris, and just the idea of putting things in their place, if everything's in its place in the right way, then you clear a line and you feel good about yourself. That I feel like I do that in my kitchen. It's like clear a line. We don't have to clear every single line, but just let's think about things in a Tetris way in order to keep your life in order. And it really does work for me. I don't know what that says about me. I also feel like I do this when, I pack for a vacation. It's like, it's Tetris time, everybody. Everything goes into the bag in a way that is absolutely perfect. Can't be done a better way.
And one of the things that they brought up in the study is that as games become more immersive and they have you do more things and become more realistic, it's easier for people to fall into that, right? Like if you're in a game where you're walking, like Grand Theft Auto, and you're walking down the street, like, should I just get in that car and just drive off, even though I don't know it, or it's not my key? Or there's just
the Grand Theft Auto is not a great example of what you should do in real life.
No.
Yes.
There's a point to that, in that at some point where the games almost mimic reality so much that it might be hard for you to just say wait a minute, that's something totally different.
I don't get that. I always know when I'm playing a game. I always know when I'm in reality. And this may not be the same thing, but I do see this happen regularly with me. I will hear a phone ring and automatically just go to my pocket and feel the phone in my pocket ringing, even though there's no phone there. It's the house phone that's ringing, but I perceive it vibrating in my pocket, and it's just unconscious. I just go to check. Oh, wait, that's the house phone. It's not my personal phone that's ringing. And I also have another experience with this, is that if I'm out raking leaves or doing something like that, where I'm actually holding something in both hands, and I hear a noise, I feel like the rake vibrates to alert me that there's a noise. So clearly I heard the noise first, but in my mind, I'm processing that the buzz of the rake is letting me know, hey, turn your head to look to see what's coming. So those are things I was, as going through this article, I was kind of thinking of things that have actually happened to me in my real life. And it is the phantom phone ring or phantom phone buzz. And then the buzzing of the controller when you actually aren't holding the controller, you're holding something else in both hands.
I think it's less about maybe the games, but just the way we are so engaged with certain forms of non-reality based entertainment that it's one thing to come away from a movie, shooting off, quips from one-liners from Army of Darkness or anything, or maybe imagining yourself I'm Indiana Jones, even though I'm
the protagonist. Yeah.
You do that, but there's because video games affect the decision-making part of your brain. I think there's an element there that I don't think it's necessarily an epidemic or something that is super concerning, but it's definitely things that people should just keep in mind when they're playing. Maybe like just take a few minutes, like a 30-minute breathe. They already tell you to do that with video games to rest your eyes, but maybe just psychologically as well.
Well,
give it a
even
rest.
when you mentioned Roger, the idea of like a song getting stuck in your head type thing. I mean, there's a repetitiveness thing that doesn't apply to everybody, but it definitely applies to me, where sometimes repetition, I feel like, oh yeah, I'm going to be repetitive right now. And that might be, yeah, a song that is going through my head over and over, where I'm like, kind of like a new song in my head, but okay. But the video game aspect of it is so much more of like a lifelike thing. You're going down the hallway, you turn right, turn left. Do you turn right again? That kind of thing. Because sometimes we as humans, we want to have a schedule, a routine. And this, I feel like this is kind of a gray area of that.
It is definitely something to keep an eye on.
Well, DoorDash has started robot deliveries in Los Angeles and Chicago. We're really changing gears here. In partnership with the company Coco Robotics. You may not have heard of them, but eligible customers can receive sidewalk deliveries sourced from more than 600 participating merchants in, again, LA and Chicago. Now, we talked in the pre-show that Coco Robotics I'm very familiar with because they're all over the place on the west side. When I say west side of LA, I mean all the way out in Santa Monica, California. They are all over the place. They started deliveries for DoorDash also in Helsinki in Finland last year through an international sub-brand, Wolt. And the company says that Coco robots completed over 100,000 deliveries during this initial pilot phase. So I just wanted to ask you, Rob, and you, Roger, have you ever used a robot delivery? Fun little friend on the sidewalk.
I live in the Midwest, and in the suburbs of one of the bigger cities in the Midwest. So we're not getting this stuff anytime soon where I live, but I've seen these robots on my daughter's college campus. And we did when she, her first year when she was a freshman living in the dorm, and we were just there visiting her. We actually did, order a pizza that we wanted the robot to deliver to us. And it does. It's like they've now started to build little doors in the dorm rooms where the robots can come in and out. And it brought the pizza all the way to her door, knocked on the door. We opened the door. We're able to take the pizza out. She had to scan something or something like that. And we were good to go. So I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And these robots, I think they're kind of cool too. I just think it's going to be a while because of where I live and how far away from like the downtown area I live. It'll be a while before I think we probably see these in my neighborhood.
Well, and I had the same thought, and I'm not totally sure. DoorDash hasn't been super forthcoming about what parts of LA are they expanding to, because of course Los Angeles metro area, very large. So on the west side, a friend of mine lives way out at the beach. On his street, you see these Coco robots just all the time. And nobody cares. They're just sort of like, oh, hey, robot. I walk my dog. My dog doesn't care about the robot. But in my neighborhood, I don't know. The sidewalks are a little bit more, willy-nilly. I think I would have quite a few folks in my neighborhood who'd be like, what the heck is going on here? When the idea of delivery robots first came about, and I don't know, Roger, what was that, like 2010? The whole idea was like, people are going to vandalize them and, they won't be able to do what they need to do. Not really the case. I see them work pretty well in certain areas. But again, how does that scale?
I know up where my parents live in Northern California, in the Central Valley, it's pretty suburban. and like they have like the 6-lane roads. One of the local supermarkets up there, Save Mart, had a bunch of these robots for a while, but I noticed the last time I was up there that they were no longer there, and that was maybe 3 years ago that they had them. So I'm wondering if they were trialing to see how they worked in certain environments and found that maybe you just need a certain density of consumers in order to make it worthwhile versus just having people show up at the store, or have the store have specialty delivery out to people instead.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing with DoorDash is, hey, these robots can deliver stuff more easily than somebody in a car. Fewer emissions. That's a whole lot of marketing speak about what's going on here. But in a certain area, and Rob, to your point, in a college campus, oh my gosh, I mean, talk about, captive audience, right? This stuff works really well. This is not going to scale globally. There's no way. You can't do it. You can only really make this work in certain areas of certain cities, and call it an urban landscape, or college campus, or whatever, a grid, and that's where it works. So yeah, I'm interested in how this sort of thing does scale, because how do you scale unless you take it to the sky?
To scale, you would need to have a multi-form robot. So maybe you have like a larger vehicle carry like 6 of these, and they go to an area, and all these 6 robots are within the same vicinity, and they all disembark the larger, like a truck or something, and they roll out to the various destinations, and then they all come back, and the guy just drives, or the person drives the truck to a new location where they can pick up new orders or whatever and deliver those there. I mean, you know what I mean? Like it would be kind of weird to expect a DoorDash robot to transit like 15 miles, but if you can get it so like a normal truck
and the
would
expectation is like you're getting that pizza. You don't want it to go 15 miles because then it's going to be cold.
You have to be in a dense area. So I'm thinking about when I was a kid and I would visit my cousins who lived literally in Brooklyn in a brownstone, and there's bodegas on both corners of both sides of the street. And whenever they wanted something, it literally was a 2-minute walk to go to, one of these 4 stores to get literally whatever you would want to have. So I could see a store like that where they've got 6, 10, 12 of these, and people who are literally right there in eye shot of the physical location are ordering things, and they can throw them in the bot and send it on its way, and it makes your delivery. I'm thinking, places where people still deliver stuff by foot, who deliver stuff on bikes, that these things would work very good there. If you got to drive 15 miles to get someone, you've kind of defeated the purpose. That requires a vehicle that's going to traverse the road to do it.
Yeah.
That's where, the multimodal type device would be, where maybe you have a truck that delivers to a location, then they all come out of the location, make the deliveries, and then come back.
And, it's interesting because I've always thought this is like one of the perfect examples of how convenience stores could really expand their reach, right? Instead of having people come into your AM, PM, or 7-Eleven, you just load the thing up with Slurpees or whatever, like late night snacks and stuff, beef jerky, and you just send it down the road, because there's at least
they are doing that already.
Yeah. But what I'm saying,
to Rob's point, it's like, if it's on your corner, I've got one on the corner right now, like my corner store. I'm in there all the time. I don't need a robot to like bring it to my house. I just walk like half a block.
But that's where it would work, though, Sarah. I think the fact that I just don't feel like walking down I don't feel like walking half a block. Can I just click order and I get the thing I ordered in 11 minutes because a robot delivered it? That's where that would work to me. It seems like if you live in a suburb, like I live in a development, but it's a large development. There's a lot of houses here, but you have to drive all the way out of the development to get around to like the areas where the shopping centers are. This just wouldn't work because those things are, the shopping centers, although they're not far, are 3-4 miles away from my actual house.
I also wonder about the Chicago part of this expansion for DoorDash, because Chicago, known as a place where it snows. Yeah, I mean, sure, you've got, a grid and relatively flat land, but these robots, I mean, they can only they're not like really strong robots. Like, they're just like little sidewalk robots that will give you a pizza. Like, you're not gonna get through a snowstorm.
Whether sleet or snow or rain or night, that little robot's going to give you your slice of pizza.
I guess so. Yeah,
It'll
it
be
might
so
be cold.
solid by the time you get it, though.
Might be cold. Might be cold.
I mean,
But and maybe this is sort of something that just happens in the spring and summer, and it and like like lots of things kind of shuts down in winter times.
I mean, it's going to be when you have delivery service, this is not going to be the one thing you have. Like we were talking about yesterday, you're going to have different modes of delivery, right? You can either have some sort of air drone, or you could have a rolling robot, or you could have like a web van style, like just a cargo van that rolls through and drops stuff off along their route. And I think depending on what the product is and how close you are, like I live 3 blocks away from a convenience store, but I know people who walk 7 blocks away walk by my house to get to that same convenience store. I'm sure they would love having a robot that just rolls back up to their house instead of them having to lug their lottery tickets and all the other stuff they pick up. Those weird.
Can the robot do the lottery ticket for you? I feel like you have to go there in person.
Yeah.
Do you?
I think so. Yeah.
I mean,
I think, yeah. Well, if my corner store is to be believed, yes, you do. But you can't win if you don't play, right?
that's true. Of course,
That
if you
is
play
true.
too much, you probably weren't winning. So maybe just stop.
All right. Moving on to the mailbag.
In our patron chat about the Wizard of Oz being AI enhanced for the Las Vegas Sphere, Martin had a sentiment about some of the stuff that you probably share. AI fatigue. I know I share it. I saw a box of cereal that had 30% more AI in it today. Martin writes, a 360-degree conversation of a film is something I would be really interested in experiencing and would love to see. But as soon as AI was mentioned, my brain went, and became less interested in the story. I had to keep reminding myself that the technology behind it is cool and the actual end product sounded like it would be a great experience, hoping the overthinking and the over marketing of everything technological as AI runs out soon. And I'm with Martin on this, because it's like everything is AI. I'm being facetious about the box of cereal, but it probably sounded believable to somebody.
I was like, what cereal?
I mean, we're at that phase of a technology where the mind share has gotten to the point where marketing is now, you got to include it, right? I mean, the most banal example was like in the late 90s where everything was extreme, right? You had extreme Mountain Dew, you had extreme like deodorant, you had something that was, if it wasn't extreme, it's just plain. If it's plain, no one wants it. Got to make it extreme. And so I think AI has now become that thing where even if its use is very limited in the product that you sell, you put AI on it, and then it becomes a lot more sophisticated, or at least a lot more contemporary compared to your competitors' offerings.
Yeah, the whole AI fatigue thing is certainly real for me, even though, as we talked about on the show earlier, it is a tool that I think is very helpful. You just kind of have to know how to use it. And a lot of people are like, what are all these tools? There's so many of them. And that's where I think the fatigue comes in, is like, oh, okay, so the movie got enhanced because of AI. Again, now I have to like think about how the AI enhanced the movie instead of, some sort of technology. I mean, this is technology. That's what it is. And I get it. I definitely get it. I feel AI fatigue all the time. I mean, we go through countless DTNS live and briefings and headline shows where it's like, is this gonna be like 10 stories about AI again? I mean, they are the stories. They're the new stories.
I mean,
But
at least
AI today, and for the last 2.5 years, is the World Wide Web from like the mid 90s through probably 2008, and then we started getting into Web 2.0 and Web 3.0. AI is just it is the hottest thing right now. And here's the thing I think about this. I think that people like us, people who are listening to this show, we are absolutely being bombarded with AI. I kind of wonder though, are the regulars, not Luddites, but just folks who just don't live and breathe tech every minute of the day, they probably hear AI a lot, but they probably don't have the fatigue from it because they're just not thinking about it in every facet of their life. Unless, if it's something that they have to use for work or something like that, then maybe. But if you're just regular Joe Schmo and you're going to your job and you don't use AI and you don't listen to shows like Daily Tech News Show Live, then it may not be that big a deal for you. And it might just be we're kind of in our own echo chamber and we're talking to the same people about the same stuff literally day in and day out, even though it is a big story and AI is changing the world.
Yeah, but part of it is it's such a nebulous, broad term at this stage that it's like, buy food. If everyone always talks about food, but like, what food are you talking about? Are you talking about breakfast? Are you talking about lunch? You're talking about snack food? You know what I mean? Like when you only have one descriptor to describe the thing that comes in a multitude of forms, it might just kind of give the sense that it's all the same.
yes, and I think that's a good point. Is talking about even us on our team have gone through the sort of like, do we just say AI in a broad, like a blanket statement, and no, we try to distinguish between a large language model or something that is very specific to that kind of AI. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Instead of just being like AI, it's a robot that talks for you, because in many cases that's not what it is at all. And yeah, like you said, Rob, not everybody cares or is going to care about it, but here we are. Well, remember, if you have ideas about how we should talk about AI in the future or anything else we talk about on the show, remember to send in your comments to feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. Thank you in advance.
So, folks, you have been submitting show titles over at dtns.showbot.tv, and during the show, we've got a bunch of them. I think there's like 34, 35 submissions over there. So we're just going to go through a few of them, and I want to start from the bottom here of the list here. So let's go with the phones and the Furious. I like that one. The phones and the Furious. Global logistic or how do you say that? Global linguistics.
Yeah.
By Lion Gen Video. That's a good one. It's all just one big video game, JPEG 84.
Sometimes I feel that way. Yes.
Get your game on IRL, Nick with the C. I like that one too. Here's one, strafe walking in the office. That is me personally. I have definitely done that one. G James B. Side Eye AI writing by C Spawn. The Great iPhone Rescue, JPEG 84. Controlling the controllables, W. Scott is one. So, Sarah, what did we decide to go with?
We went with, even though lots of good submissions, we went with Nick with a C's, Get Your Game On IRL.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm. I mean, next time you got to pack for a trip, you think about Tetris. That's what you do. And that's how you pack.
I will say that there are times where there are ways to get a lot of money, in-game money, whether it's gold coins or credits or whatever, and you wish you could do that same thing in real life because you need to pay a bill or you need to buy more groceries or something. It's like, man, I wish I could just find stuff littered around the ground and sell it to someone, who will give you, I mean, yeah, in a way you could if I went around picking up aluminum cans all day, but it's just like, here's a rock, give me 5 credits for it.
Is that a battle axe? Let me go pick that up right fast.
Yeah. And then you sell it and you buy yourself a nice shiny new one. We had a lot of support today. No Patreon raises today, but we have had a lot of folks in the Twitch chat supporting us. I want to give a shout out to Zoe Brings Bacon, who is always cheering us on with bits. PC Miles, who cheered us on with 20 bits. And Lauren, who followed us yesterday, as well as NJ Shadow and Clancy317. So thank you one and all for supporting us.
Indeed.
Hosted by data scientist Andrea Joins-Roy, Behind the Data examines what data sets say about what's happening in our world, politics, and health, and why. In the latest episode, Andrea talks with Professor Patrick Egan from NYU on how quantifying political attitudes can help us find common ground. Catch it at BehindTheDataShow.com.
You can find us live because we do it Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. That is 2000 UTC. And you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. Rob, Tom, Roger, and I will be back tomorrow with Len Peralta, and we'll see you then.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.